Hi everyone, my name is Vina, aka Miss WOCReader, and welcome back to my channel. Welcome to my May reading wrap-up. May was a busy month, but I still managed to squeeze some books in, so let's get right on into what I read. This is The Beckett Effect by Nashe Jones. I've read one of Nashe's middle grade novels. I still have another one on my shelf that I need to read. So I was curious to see what she did with a YA romance, since she does incorporate romance into her middle grade. And this follows Ren, who is aspiring to be a film director. She gets into her dream film class at school, but then her perceived rival, Beckett Lane, gets into it as well. And I say perceived rival because they don't have a full-on rivalry, but Ren dislikes him because of some petty drama from when they were little kids and he used to pick on her all the time. But also she hates that he gets a lot of attention from all the girls in their town. He's somewhat of a semi-celebrity because his father used to star in one of those teen paranormal shows in the early 2000s. And so he is like a heartthrob, and by like being his son, Beckett gets a lot of attention too. He starred in some local commercials and things like that. So Ren just does not vibe with Beckett, especially since it seems like he has a new girlfriend every week. And Ren's sister actually has a crush on Beckett. Ren's sister is only about a year apart in age from her. Ren really wants to turn her sister off of this crush on Beckett, and after an incident at a party, she comes up with this plan to embarrass Beckett by creating a documentary where she is comparing him to one of the characters they're studying in their film class, and she is going to interview all his exes so that they can talk dirt about him and get down to the bottom of why he dumped them. So the author does this thing where she tries to have these like fantasy movie scenes throughout. That for me, it just felt like it made the story longer. I saw the vision. I understood what she was trying to do. I don't really feel like it gelled well. I thought there was a lot of drama in this one. Like the stuff at the party and stuff early on was definitely realistic. Some of the rumors that people were saying about him, like, I kind of rolled my eyes at them. Like, they were so over the top, and it was trying to be like how in John Tucker Must Die, there were all those different rumors about him that were so obviously not true. But some of these, I'm just like, I don't think Gen Z would have these kind of rumors about people at school. And while Ren is trying to prove that Beckett is such a bad guy, she realizes, he's actually a sweet guy. It wasn't his fault that any of the relationships went sour. I thought Ren was a well fleshed out character. I enjoyed her relationship with both her sister and her mother because her parents are divorced, and she has a lot of like stuff she still needs to work through in regard to that. Her mother favors her sister over her, and they don't have the best relationship. So I liked seeing that complicated relationship between Ren and her mother, because at that age, a lot of us, like when we were teens, had that complicated relationship with our mom. And of course, like, there's the need to figure out what you want to do in life because it's soon coming time for graduation. Beckett, on the other hand, I don't feel was well developed. He was too perfect. For one, early on, just like in passing, basically, we find out that he is half Samoan. Now, his Samoan mother is deceased, and he's just grown up with his white father. It never comes up again. They never have a conversation about it. It doesn't seem to affect the way in which he moves through the world, even though their town is extremely white. And it felt a little off to me because I've talked about it a few times on this channel about the racially ambiguous love interest in Black author books, or a passing one, or just them trying to make the love interest other rather than black, and for reasons I don't understand. And it felt like more of that here. There was just no reason for him to have this racial background if it was never going to be brought up again. And I didn't really get it. I don't know why that was a thing. It does kind of have me side-eyeing some of these authors a little bit when I do pick up these stories, because I'm like, what was the reason for that? Especially if it's not a background that they themselves share an identity with. Because when you are writing characters of different backgrounds, it does affect how they operate through life. Reckitt was just a nice guy. We hear about the complicated relationship with his father and having a hard time meeting his father's expectations. And Ren even overhears some fighting between him and his father. But I just wanted a little bit more depth than what we got here. It was an okay romance. It wasn't my favorite. I don't think that Ren and Beckett had the greatest chemistry. And I will pick up something that she writes next, but fortunately this one wasn't too much of a standout. This is On Sunday She Picked Flowers by Yaya Schofield, and I really didn't enjoy On Sunday She Picked Flowers. It wasn't egregiously bad, it just wasn't that great. It wasn't really memorable for me. So at first when I started reading it, there was a lot of parental violence, so I wasn't in the mood for it, so I just had to pause it and come back to it later. That's why it took me so long to read it. But I was listening to it on my way to and from work, and I thought that there was a lot of great detail around the complicated relationship with the main character and her mother and just her family in general. I thought that was descriptive and well written. We get this sapphic romance thrown into the mix, which feels very rushed and forced and a little bit vulgar, and I didn't understand. And overall, it didn't feel like there was much of a plot here after our main character escapes from her abusive life. So it was hard for this to really retain my attention. This is Hanging with Vampires, and this one is by Insha Fitzpatrick. It is a field guide, everything you want to learn about vampires for a child. So I thought this was a great wealth of knowledge. It talked about vampire lore from all different parts of the world. It examined vampire media, the very well-known ones like Dracula and Twilight and all of those other stories. It had tips and tricks for keeping yourself safe from a vampire. So I think for kids who are interested in paranormal, I thought this was pretty well done. That they have another one that is ghosts and another one that is aliens. I read the ghost one, I still need to read the alien one, but I thought it was great to just have this illustrated field guide that kind of gives you an intro to everything you ever wanted to know about vampire media. This is Mama's Chicken and Dumplings, and it takes place in Charlottesville, Virginia during the 1930s. We follow this little girl named Allie, who really wants to find her mom a husband after her no-good daddy ran off when she was a baby. And so we're following Ellie as she thinks, oh, my mom makes the best chicken and dumplings, so I'm going to give out her chicken and dumplings to eligible bachelors, and then they're going to fall in love with her cooking and therefore fall in love with her. And it was nice to get some insight to this thriving Black community in Virginia, specifically during that time. I loved the aspects of the community and how they really looked out for each other. The author doesn't shy away from the hardships that were happening during that time, but it's not the main focus. So I think this is good if you are trying to get a younger middle grade reader into more historical work. I could easily see this being taught in the classroom. And there is a guy that Allie has her I set on for her mama, and then she gets upset because her mother is clearly into her music teacher. I love the dynamic between her and her rival at school, who is also her music teacher's niece. And she also has to deal with her best friend moving away to Chicago. So there's a lot of different stuff going on throughout the book to keep it interesting. Allie has a very feisty personality too. And overall, this was a story that I would highly recommend. This is by Diana L. Mann. This is A Lost Revenge. It is a graphic novel by Caitlin Bayron and Aisha Fulmer. So this is a Descendants novel. And I've seen Descendants 1, 2, and 3 multiple times. I haven't seen Descendants 4, and I know there's a new one coming up soon. This serves as a prequel between the events that happened in Descendants 3 and the events that happened in Descendants 4, following Uma and her journey, because she ends up becoming principal of Oradon Prep. And for people who watched the movie, they said, oh, it was like, how did she get there? So this fills in the blanks a little bit. It has the same great banter and humor and friendship of the movies, following Uma now that she and Mal have helped save Oradon. She's trying to find her place in Oradon since nobody is restricted to the Isle of the Lost anymore. So it is a very quick read. I thought that the illustrations were pretty fun. We follow the pirates of this world, and we're all, for people who are Descendant fans, I think they're gonna have a fun time with this. My niece was obsessed with Uma, and so I'm gonna send this her way because I think Descendants still has a piece of her heart. This is The Bush Team Murder by Ashley Ruth M. Bernier. This is set in St. Thomas, U.S. Virgin Islands. We are following this food journalist named Naomi. She works for this network called Eat TV, and they pitched to her and one of her co-workers the opportunity to host a new true crime based TV show involving food, but they have to both present a kind of like a pilot episode where they find and are able to solve a food related mystery. And Naomi, even though she lives in North Carolina now, she really does love her home, and she's like, I know the perfect story, because her Auntie Ursula, well, it wasn't like her aunt, but this was a community leader. Auntie Ursula was murdered, and it was this big mystery surrounding it, so she goes back home to help solve it. They have a year to get this idea up off the ground. So while she's home for the holidays, and she wants to figure it out. The book kind of jumps between past and present day, where the events happened a year ago that she's retelling. And there were a lot of characters to keep up with, because there were some side mysteries along the way that are also being solved in addition to the main plot, and that got a bit confusing. Some of them were more interested than others, and for the sake of trying to learn this world and keep track of everybody, it was a lot. There were parts I enjoyed of this and parts that I was okay on. It wasn't bad. It wasn't memorable. I really enjoyed the stuff with Naomi and her family and her crush Mateo, who's this guy she grew up with. And she also has to deal with her father's dementia. His memory loss is becoming a little bit more prominent, so there's extra care shown in the way that they interact with him, which I really appreciated that depiction. So overall, it was an okay introduction. I loved all the stuff about the food, and it was great to see a Caribbean mystery that was actually set in the Caribbean by an author who is clearly from the Caribbean, because the last Caribbean cozy mystery I read was by an author who was not Caribbean, and you could tell while reading it. A lot of stuff, just as somebody who comes from a Caribbean family, just felt very familiar. I've also been to St. Thomas, so it's cool to see that depicted in a book, and for her to show, yes, like we are living in this beautiful place with gorgeous beaches and stuff, but we are also so much more than that. And I did think she did a great job with blending those two factors together. I also read The Killing Spell by Kofi. This was a book that I was reading throughout the month, and it was billed as an urban fantasy with Hawaiian inspiration. So it's set in a futuristic Los Angeles where there are these different factions that are ruled by language. It was a little bit complicated to understand. It did feel more like a dystopian world. Specifically, it felt very YA dystopian. Like, our main character comes from a Hawaiian and Russian clan, and she does spells in both languages. For her, it's very important to keep her culture alive, and that was the theme throughout, about keeping your culture alive. I feel like things as they were explained in the book were just done in a way that I'm used to in YA books, very simplistic and straightforward, and the lessons she was learning were pretty much straightforward. I had to remind myself that this is a character in her mid-20s because her voice read very much like a 17 or 18-year-old. So when she was talking about the world being on her shoulders and having the little kids in her family who are parentless and being their guardian, like, I kept forgetting that she's in her 20s, and I'm like, oh my gosh, this is a lot for an 18-year-old to balance, especially since she is the head of her family. And there's a love interest in here. He is one of those typical dystopian love interests where he's a bit of a bad boy, but not really. There's a lot more to him than meets the eye. Thankfully, the romance, while there, wasn't too heavy-handed in force. It was very, I would say, like PG-13 at best. And overall, I enjoyed listening to it. I enjoyed the time that I spent reading with it. I don't think it was that memorable enough that I would want to come back and like reread it again and again. Last, I read Books, Iced Coffee, and A Side of Dragon, which was a graphic novel by Amanda Lovelace. I never heard of Amanda Lovelace before this, so this was my introduction. Apparently she writes poetry. I was not a fan of this graphic novel, unfortunately. The format of it alone didn't vibe with me. Granted, there were like plot points that were carried throughout it, but this graphic novel is more done in a series of short stories format where we are watching her piece together these like basically like quick character scenes and moments, and they felt kind of random. Our main character, she runs a bookshop that is diverse and LGBTQ plus friendly, and she's struggling because not a lot of people are coming in yet. It's because they're intolerant. People don't want to come in this small town and visit my bookshop, which kind of contrasts with how people seem to be very open about their sexuality in this world. This was in a fictional Jersey Shore side town, and everybody seemed to be very open with their sexuality here. It is a very, very cozy world. The illustrations were beautiful, but there was a lot of meta stuff going on in here too. Like, there was 3 pages in a row where we just got mention of real world book titles on page. Like, one point there was a fire accidentally caused by one of the dragons in the bookstore, and she's like, not the Emily Henry novels. And I was like, that I didn't like that. Like, so yeah, there's a lot of real world book mentions. There's a lot of very cutesy moments developing a romance in here that would work for me if we would have actually just seen them have some more conversations before they just got together. I feel like this book tried to do a lot and at sometimes was kind of confusing. And overall, if it had just like a little bit more plot, it would have flowed together so much better. So those were the books that I read during the month of May. Let me know if you've read any of these books or any of them sound interesting to you. If you like this video, make sure and hit that like button. Thanks so much for watching. I will see you guys in the next one. Bye!